All right, now to give us more insights into this, we're joined on this broadcast by Professor Peter Kuznick, who's a professor of history and director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at the American University. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Professor Kuznick, this is a very critical moment in this war. There is an American proposal for a 1-month-long ceasefire. But what do you think, in your assessment, that Donald Trump can realistically do to make Russia accept this ceasefire? Because the Russians have already come out and said that a 1-month ceasefire actually works in favor of the Ukrainians.
The Russians have laid down a number of conditions, but it's not clear what they're going to insist upon before the ceasefire goes into effect. Russia does not have the incentive that Ukraine has to push for a ceasefire now. Russia is advancing on the battlefield in the eastern region, as well as driving the Ukrainian troops out of Russia in the Kursk region. So it's in Putin's military self-interest and effectively diplomatic self-interest to postpone this decision even a few more days. The estimate is that he's already retrieved 90% of the land that the Ukrainian troops had taken in Kursk region, and that they've got the remnants surrounded. Zelensky denies this, but it looks like that's the reality. So Putin is asking for other conditions. He wants an agreement before the meeting takes place, before the ceasefire occurs. He wants to talk to Trump. He wants to gain a commitment to Ukrainian neutrality, that Ukraine will not join NATO, that the U.S. will not supply arms. He's got a number of conditions that he's insisting upon. But Trump says that the meeting between Putin and Witkoff, the U.S. mediator, went very, very well, and that he's very optimistic. Rubio and Waltz and others have also expressed optimism. But clearly, Putin has a lot more cards to play than Zelensky does at this point.
Speaking of cards, the fact that
Yes.
Russia has been able to take back Sudza and a large part of the Kursk region, realistically speaking, for the Ukrainian side that are backed by the Americans, is there any card that can be played by the Ukrainians, backed by the Americans in these negotiations?
You remember the meeting between Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office. Trump said to Zelensky outright that you've got very few cards to play, and the few that you do have depends on support from the United States. Trump also warned that if this fighting continues, we're heading for World War III. And we see the response of the Europeans. They are pushing for the remilitarization of Europe. They're pushing for spending 800 billion euros to rearm and remilitarize. They've made clear that even their idea of a peacekeeping force of European countries is contingent upon the U.S. backstop. So the Europeans are being much more bellicose and much more strongly supporting Ukraine, but they don't have the muscle to back it up right now. So that's why the ball is really in Putin's court. Trump is threatening certain financial and other economic measures that could punish Russia if Russia doesn't agree to the ceasefire. But still, Russia is in the driver's seat here. Hopefully they will agree to a ceasefire, because nobody or very few people want to see this fighting continue. Right. And Putin has agreed to not slaughter the Ukrainian troops in Kursk who are surrounded. He's accused them of committing horrible atrocities against the Russian citizens in the area. And then to go along with that, Russia has pushed into the Ukrainian region around Kursk. So they're expanding the battlefield now. Right. And each day they move more and more and take more and more Ukrainian-held territory. So it's certainly in Ukraine's interest and the Europeans' interest to end this as quickly as possible. The question is it in Putin's interest, and what will Putin be willing to do?
That's of course the million-dollar question. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Kuznick, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.